What's my opinion on the Vince McMahon situation with his lawsuit? After what I heard, what wrestling commentators and former WWE wrestlers and current WWE wrestlers, in my opinion, after when I listened to everything what they had to say, and when I looked at Vince McMahon myself psychologically, in my opinion, his character in his mind came alive. It was a reality to him. And he didn't know when to stop. Because that character, what he was living, was a fantasy world that was not real, but in his mind was real. And people like me, who've been in the wrestling industry myself, I know what it's like. It's not an easy industry. It's all about how much pounding your body can take before it breaks down. And it all comes down to how far you're willing to go and let things slide before you actually bring it to a stop. And the wrestling industry is who you know. You can be the best talented wrestler in the world of professional wrestling, but if you do not have the right connections and the right relationships with the promoter, you're going absolutely nowhere. And it's all about who you know is how you go anywhere in the world of professional wrestling. I mean, you can be with the WCW, you can be with WWE, you can be with the AEW and all these new other wrestling promotions that seem to come and go. You can be the best talented wrestler in the world, and if you don't have the right connections, if you do not have a good relation or any relationship with any of the promoters, it's as if you're right where you started. You're going nowhere. And that's the downside about professional wrestling. Now, with Vince McMahon and his lawsuit, in my opinion, it's a guy who pushed things and he didn't know when to stop. He kept on going and going because he knew, I can get away with this, I can get away with that. And the more times he thinks he can get away with it, he'll keep going further. He'll attempt more daring actions than what he already did. Now, this lawsuit with Janelle Grant, I question it because, in my opinion, this is all about the $3 million that Vince McMahon agreed to pay out, that he agreed to pay out, that he didn't pay out. He only paid this Janelle Grant, according to the documents, $1 million out of the $3 million that he agreed to pay out. So now this Miss Janelle Grant's coming back for her extra $2 million. Of course she's going to come back for that. And I question Vince McMahon's intelligence on that himself. Why would you think that just paying her the $1 million thinking that she's going to go away? In my opinion, after all the things that I've seen and heard from, I believe Vince actually thought that she would keep quiet, go away, she'll lose interest, and she'll just fade away. Now, the problem is when you hand out hush money to people, they don't actually go away. Once you give them what they want, you're good to go. But when that money dries out, they're going to come back and they're going to bleed you dry for more money. And technically, it's a charge of extortion. It's a criminal charge, and it's even jailable with a lengthy prison sentence, actually. Because, I'm not talking about Vince McMahon specifically in this case, but I'm talking about how celebrities, they get, how they'll pay out hush money, like Donald Trump with that Stormy Daniels thing. A lot of celebrities will get caught in the hook with a hush money payment, being blackmailed by their victims. And when a person does that, it's extortion. It's actually a criminal offense. If anybody that knows the criminal justice system, when you see hush money payments going out, and when you see people blackmailing people for hush money, it's extortion. And it is. I don't know if Vince McMahon himself was aware of this. Maybe he knows the criminal justice system. Maybe he doesn't. But when I heard what the wrestlers had stated, and the former wrestlers, and if all these things what they had stated is factual, because see, I never read the documents. I never read it. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But if it's true, my conclusion is how Vince McMahon is not prosecuted is beyond my wild imaginations. It makes no sense. And in a sense, if it is true, then Vince McMahon is right up there with Harvey Weinstein. He's right up there, right next to him. And the only way how Harvey Weinstein was brought to an end is when the judge in the court just said the only way we're going to end this problem is by putting a famous person like Harvey Weinstein in jail, so all the other billionaires will look around and say, oh crap, this guy just went to jail, and then it sends a message to them. Maybe Vince McMahon's mind, he's thinking that that would never happen to him. He's untouchable. When you're an owner of a company, you lose sense of reality. You think that you're untouchable. You're above and beyond the system, the law. You're better than other people. You got more power than others. You got more power. But they lose the sense of reality. They think they can play God. They're untouchable. That's where everything gets out of control, and that's where things get dangerous. Now, Stephanie McMahon, Vince's daughter, was named. I don't see... The problem is when this story comes out, it comes from over the internet. And when you read the internet, you don't know if those internet links are truthful, if it's fake, if it's false, if it's made up. You don't know. And Stephanie McMahon was a name that popped up allegedly saying that she knowingly knew of her father's actions, and she was one of the names who tried to cover things up to make it sound like it never happened at all. If that's true, if I were the courts, I'd put Stephanie in prison for a long, long time. Vince, he's 78 years old, and if it's just Janelle Grant, I order Vince to pay her the $2 million that he owes her. Order Vince again to pay her all her mental health payments out so she gets all the treatment that she needs to be rehabilitated so she can recoup and go on with her life if she can. But I believe Vince should be on the hook for all those mental health payments, rehabilitation payments that she's going through. Because it's Vince who did his own actions. It's Vince McMahon. Only he knows why he did what he did. But with this John Laurinaitis, that guy got to be the stupidest person to walk the face of the earth. If Vince McMahon told John Laurinaitis to jump off a 5-story building, and he said, "Oh, great, let's do it," does John Laurinaitis actually think that he's going to survive the fall? Is he that dumb? If somebody said jump off a 5-story building, would you do it? I don't see. John Laurinaitis can try to throw Vince under a bus all he wants, but at the end of the day, it was John Laurinaitis that went and followed through with the actions along with Vince. So in my opinion, yeah, I throw John Laurinaitis' ass in jail. I leave him there. Because I don't believe right now, he's doing everything he can right now to pull his ass out of a fire, to protect himself. What I would do if I was the judge in the conclusion with this, depending on the witnesses, how many victims there is, as far as I understand, the best of my abilities, is just this Janelle Grant. I would just say, Vince, if I was the judge, I'd say, Vince, I'm going to order you to pay the extra $2 million out, pay for her health care rehabilitation, stay away from her for the rest of your life, so God help me. And I also court order, Vince, you're no longer to be an owner of any company. You're not to be involved with WWE anymore. It's no longer your outfit. You're not to be employed with them no more. And I just leave it as that, because the way I see it, Vince McMahon is 78 years old. He's likely at the end of his lifespan. I just leave it at that, depending on the victims that's out there. But the concern is, like it with Vince, if the courts were actually going to send him to prison, I don't think Vince would survive the night. I mean, he survived the night, but I don't think he would be able to survive the difference between living a life in prison, what it's actually like, than having the exchange from what he's used to living. I believe that lifestyle from what he's used to now and living life in prison would kill him. And that's why I say, why don't we just, order on the payout? Miss Janelle Grant, the $2 million payout. Janelle Grant, all the healthcare costs it's going to cost to get her rehabilitated. And order Vince to stay away from her and stay away from with WWE in order, court order no longer to be affiliate, to be in ownership of any company for that fact, or have any management jobs or anything. Because Vince McMahon, I don't think Vince understands. When I see Vince playing his character, like I said, the Mr. McMahon character, in my opinion only, I think that character in his mind came real to him. In his mind, he was living that character when he thinks that was a real character, when really it was just a character, not reality. And I think Vince, he may have a mental illness here. Because that's like you and I say, well, let's go play Superman. Let's put on the Superman cape. Let's try to leap off this high building and see if we can fly. Chances are we're going to find ourselves flat on the ground, dead. We can't fly. In my opinion, that Mr. McMahon character in Vince McMahon's mind was a real character. But at the end of the day, according to the interviews with the wrestlers and the former wrestlers, that she had agreed to follow through with a sexual threesome with Vince, John Laurinaitis, and herself. But when I looked at that, I would look at charges in Vince's direction and Jordan Laurinaitis' direction, because she was basically blackmailed. You're to come out, take part in this, or we're going to cause more trouble in her direction. And a lot of employers, not only WWE, other employers around the world, they do that. You don't have to be involved in a professional wrestling company to see that take place. It can happen anywhere. Here in Nova Scotia, in Canada, there was a slew of women coming forward that they were sexually harassed and sexually abused on the job site by supervisors and managers and even owners of the company. That's just Nova Scotia in Canada coming forward. So if we were going around the world, ask women to come forward if they ever experienced sexual harassment and a sexual assault on the job site by managers or owners of companies, I guarantee you the numbers are going to blow right through the roof. In my opinion only, if I was the judge, I would keep the entire McMahon family away from owning any company and be involved in any management job, ownership job, or anything like that. Unfortunately, Shane McMahon's son, Vince's grandson, going to college, he got to face that dark cloud, a humiliation that he has to endure. And people are going to look down on him and say, "Oh, you're a McMahon. We can't trust you," and all this stuff. It's a sin that he has to go through that, and he will go through that. I mean, he probably wants to follow through in his grandfather's footsteps, but he has to engage that dark cloud. People don't feel comfortable around him because of his grandfather's actions and his aunt's actions. If those internet links were true, saying that Stephanie McMahon herself tried to cover up her father's actions, if it's true. But at the end of the day, Vince McMahon knowingly knew what he was doing was wrong. But Jordan Laurinaitis, I throw his ass in jail. I let Vince off because of his age. That'd be the only reason why, he's not in jail. Because I've been saying for years that governments should have a certain kind of home care place, jail setting for seniors. So their lives are not at risk, so they're not being attacked, so they're safe and all this stuff while they do their sentence. I'm not sure if the United States has that. I know Canada doesn't. They don't. But I can tell you right now, what taking place with WWE with Vince McMahon, when I heard what the wrestlers all had to say, I believe there's more than just Janelle Grant who've been attacked by Vince himself. I believe there's other women in the back because they didn't come forward. Because if you come forward, your wrestling career is ruined. Because you look at the back in the day, WWE, WWF was the biggest wrestling company in the world, and it still is. But where Vince no longer owns it, whereas that other guy there, who owns that TKO, the UFC, I don't see. We have to. They have to assure themselves to the wrestlers and to the community that they're safe to work for. Because what happened with the Janelle Grant is not a safe working environment. It's a quite toxic working environment. And it's something taking place there what shouldn't have taken place. And people like Bret Hart, here's a guy that has every reason to insult Vince McMahon, because Bret has every right to do so. Lo and behold, Vince gives Bret the go-ahead to do it. Because now Bret exposed Vince what he was in the past, back in 1997, when Vince decided, I'm going to cross over Bret. Because when Vince screwed Bret back in 1997, there was a proposal. If Mike Higginbottom, Shawn Michaels, insulted Bret like the way he did, why didn't Vince take the offer of Mark Calloway, who plays The Undertaker, get Shawn Michaels out of that main event match, Bret's last match in Montreal, have Bret lose the belt to The Undertaker, so Bret can go on to WCW and go on with his merry way. Vince's mind-setting, his abuse of power, addicted to the money thing, is what caused Vince to say, no, we're not going to do that. Well, you got to lose a belt to Shawn in Montreal. Vince is known for abusing and insulting good, solid, talented wrestlers. Bret Hart was probably the best one that he lost. I mean, I'm sure that Bret could have handled himself a little better, but at the end of the day, it was Vince who called the shots to screw Bret over at the Survivor Series in 1997, and now, pregnant 30 years later, Bret's looking back at Vince, and he's telling all the fans worldwide, I told you he was a scumbag. And Vince is standing there in embarrassment, knowing that it's all true. So, in a way, I think Vince has to accept his responsibility on his actions, and he needs help. You got to get help. You can't go out there attacking, doing what he did to Janelle Grant, and he can't be doing what he did to other people. And he has to ensure that what happened will never happen again. So this is a dark cloud over WWE, but what will come out of it is hard to say. But that's my opinion with the Vince McMahon lawsuit situation.